You're listening to the Meaningful Minutes with Nikki Olson podcast. This is a show for busy Latter-day Saint women who want to learn simple tools to feel confident and inspired in 10 minutes or less. Welcome. On this episode, we will discuss 5 steps to hear him at General Conference. I love General Conference time. I didn't always love it. In fact, when I joined the church when I was 19, I thought that there was just one session of conference and they just replayed it 5 times. So you only needed to watch one session. And I remember how shocked I was to find out that there was in fact 10 hours of talks all in one weekend. I don't think I watched or even studied all of General Conference or the talks for the first 15 years I was a member of the church. It was just too overwhelming for me. Not even because I had kids, but I just didn't understand the importance. I didn't really know how to get something out of the time that I put in, and I just didn't feel like I was feeling the Spirit when I was watching. It felt more like a chore to check off a list and say, I did it. And then as I had younger kids, I started to do like the Pinterest things for them when it came around. And they liked all the treats and the games that I created. But again, I was just watching to fulfill my Pinterest duties that I had planned. And it wasn't really until I started to work on my ability to receive revelation and hear him more in my life that conference started to bring me power, wisdom, and strength. Now I study every talk. I try to set aside a conference weekend to watch the talks and really understand what the message is for me out of each conference. Now, this has taken me 21 years to get to this point, so don't feel overwhelmed yourself if you aren't there. But I do want you to be inspired to start the journey. So today I'm going to give you 5 steps that have helped me to hear him at conference and really feel that strength. President Nelson in April 2020 conference gave us some pretty big promises if we would make the effort to hear him at conference. He said the purpose of this and every general conference is to help us hear him. We have prayed and invite you to pray that the Spirit of the Lord will be with us in such rich abundance that you can hear the messages that the Savior has especially for you. Messages that will bring peace to your soul. Messages that will heal your broken heart. Messages that will illuminate your mind. Messages that will help you know what to do as you move ahead through times of turmoil and trial. Those are some pretty big promises, right? Peace to your soul, healing your broken heart, illuminating your mind, and knowing how to handle times of turmoil. If you're in need of any of those blessings, I encourage you to try out at least one of these steps that I'm going to give you today. Now, I've created a worksheet for you with all of these steps on them so that you can strive to implement them, some of them in your life. Now, the first step that really helped me not turn conference into a checklist item and really receive what the Savior wants me to know at conference is to take a 10-day social media fast. Now, typically I take a 10-day social media fast before General Conference to prepare me for the messages that I'll be given. And this is why. I want to only be influenced by the voice of God and not by the voice of the world. I want to tune my mind and body into my ability to receive revelation, so I tune out the world. President Nelson has said about a 10-day social media fast that the effect of your 10-day fast may surprise you. What do you notice after taking a break from perspectives of the world that have been wounding your spirit? Is there a change in where you now want to spend your time and energy? Have any of your priorities shifted, even just a little? I urge you to record and follow through with each impression. Every time I do this right before conference, my mind is in tune with what changes I need to make in life, noticing what is wounding my spirit, and seeing where my priorities need to be. What would that be like for you to go into conference with that type of perspective? If this is something you're feeling pulled to do, follow through with that prompting. God is wanting to tell you something, and that perspective of the world might be getting in your way. Okay, the second way I hear him at General Conference is I write down questions I want God to answer for me. That way, when I'm going into conference with a purpose, right? Kind of like fasting. Going into fasting without a purpose is just starving, right? Well, going into conference without a purpose is just listening in general, not really applying it to your life specifically. I like to write down questions, and then as I study the talks, I write down how those questions were answered for me and what actions I now need to implement. And this has been really powerful for me personally, hearing the Lord in conference and making it more powerful and enticing to watch and listen. So step number 3 actually kind of goes with this one as well. After I've written down my questions, which I actually try to get done at least a week ahead of time, a conference, I pray about my questions daily. I kind of use social media fast like regular fasting. Like every time I think about reaching for my phone and pulling up social media, I say a silent prayer about the questions I've written down. Then I listen to see if there's any guidance I'm being given in regards to those questions. This really helps me hone in on my ability to hear him even before conference starts. But during conference, my mind is totally focused on on those questions as well, and in tune with receiving the messages God has for me. Which leads me to my 4th way I hear him at General Conference, which is I write all my revelations down before, during, and after. In fact, I do this daily all the time. If you're writing down your revelations that you're receiving daily, then President Nelson says you will grow in your ability to receive more revelations. Now, I do this on a daily basis with my Seeking Personal Revelation journal, and that has helped me be able to hear him daily in my life. And writing your revelations down at conference does not mean writing down the exact quotes that are said. It means writing down what the Spirit teaches you about what is being said. And practicing this skill before conference is big. So if you're wanting one of my Seeking Personal Revelation journals, then click the link in my show notes and check them out. Also, for last conference, I created a study guide for every talk at April conference. And that has questions to help you ponder and hear him more in the talks and write your revelations down. It's only $5 for all 35 study guides, and the link for that is in my show notes as well. Okay, now for my last step to hear him at General Conference. It is to decide how you will take in conference. Now, this doesn't have to be sitting down and watching all throughout the weekend. If that works for you, great. Make the plan and do it. If it doesn't, then make a plan for how you will take in conference after that weekend. Maybe you just watch one session live and then you listen for each of the talks later. But don't just say, I'll do it later and then not make a plan. Even saying you will listen to at least 2 talks a week is something. What I also don't want to have happen is you guilt yourself into doing nothing because you didn't watch it all the way through on General Conference weekend. Just decide what is doable for you and your current circumstances and commit. All right. Don't forget to download the worksheet with all 5 of these steps in it from the link in my show notes. And next week, there's not going to be an episode because I'm going to be on my social media fast. So I hope you join me in that fast, and I'll be back the week after conference. I hope these minutes you spent with me were meaningful, helped you feel inspired, and more confident. If you liked today's episode, check out the show notes for links to other episodes you might like too. And while you're there, in my show notes, look for the links to my website, social media, and free handouts for remembering how to implement the skills. Thank you for listening to the Meaningful Minutes podcast with Nikki Olson.